My name is Mike Nicolai, and you're watching Time to Connect.
Hey, Mike Nicolai. Thanks for taking the time to connect, man. How are you doing?
I'm good, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you faring with COVID times? I guess we're kind of on the downside of it, thank God. But it's been a weird couple of years, huh?
Very weird, extremely weird. Yeah, I'm doing okay. My wife and I both successfully avoided catching it, at least so far. And a lot of people I know got it. All of them were vaccinated, so nobody had too much trouble that I knew. A couple people kind of had a like few days of fever and stuff though, even though they were vaccinated. But yeah,
Mhm.
we're doing okay. How are you doing with it? Did you catch
Yeah,
it?
I'm vaccinated and boosted, and I still caught it in December. It
Hmm.
wasn't too bad. It was kind of one of those things where I definitely said I would hate to have this without the vaccination. But it
Yeah.
wasn't too bad, and hopefully there's not going to be. I never lost smell or anything like that, so it was probably Omicron. It was a pretty mild version, but
Yeah.
I guess I have the superpower now, being vaccinated and having
Hmm.
it. So hopefully all's well. But what has been we all had our challenges. What's been in the last these weird years we've had? What are some of the challenges you've had to deal with?
Oh boy. I mean, probably what my issues have been pretty common to everyone else. I just it's been messing with my head a little bit. Uh
Mhm.
I just um it's like the Spinal Tap thing of too much perspective or whatever, because it's just like it was nice at first to sort of stop everything, and the streets were not busy, and it was kind of sweet in its way.
Mhm.
Uh, but as it's worn on, the isolation,
Yeah.
the cabin fever, the kind of, I mean, we've done okay, but also,
Mhm.
starting a business in the middle of it was kind of crazy, but it's going okay. So
Yeah. Right on. Right on. Well, we should back up a little bit. I think probably most people watching this know who you are, but we should probably fill in a little bit of biographical stuff here. One thing I'd recommend is people go to your website. It's a really cool website. You've got a lot of great information out there, and I wanted to ask you about a couple of things. But let's see. I think, Mike, I think I first became aware of you. Um, if I'm not mistaken, it was when you were opening for the Gourds. What years were you opening for them? Because I think you had a thing going for a while, didn't you, where you were opening for them?
yep. Yeah, I did like, well, I first met those guys in like maybe like 95 or 96, because I moved to town like right before that, and I in late 94, and I was working at the Electric Lounge, and I met them there. So became friends with them. I liked their band, and I just liked hanging out with those guys. And I don't know, we just started playing some gigs at like the Hole in the Wall here in town and whatnot, and became real friendly. And then when they sort of started to do a lot of touring at some point, and I guess this was maybe, I would say late 90s, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
they asked me if I wanted to like tour with them and open for them. And then so what I did was I opened the shows, usually solo, but sometimes Jimmy and Keith would sort of back my setup,
Cool.
which was awesome. And we did like 6 tours that way. And then I would play my set usually about just like about 45 minutes, and then I would jump back behind the merch table and sell like the t-shirts and the CDs, and just travel with them like that for a while.
I'm
Yeah.
sure that was a lot of fun.
It was
Uh,
great. They were,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, they were so nice to and gracious to let me do it, and we had good times. Yeah, it's good.
Well, man, you've shared some bills with a list of almost a kind of a who's list. Everybody from the Pixies to
Yeah.
Jonathan Richmond, Uncle Tupelo. Were a lot of those things in the days pre Gourds, that Gourds thing, or after, or a
Yeah.
little both?
Yeah, most of most of those kind of bands in the like late 80s and early 90s, I was in a band in Minneapolis called the Drag Hounds, and we played all over. You know, we toured and we used to play local shows. We were like one of those bands they would call at the last minute, you know, like, can you guys open for so and so? And we would do that. So yeah, we ended up playing with a whole lot of like a weird variety of acts, you know, like, you know, they'd put us with like First Avenue and 7th Street Entry. They would put us with the Jayhawks, or they would put us with like Impaler or the Pixies or Thin White Rope. So we played with a big variety of people, you know, and yeah, that was all pre-94. That was before I moved here to Austin.
So I'm sure you got a lot of memorable ones, but what comes to mind if I say, hey, most memorable show you've played?
Well, geez, there's a lot of them kind of. I mean, I remember one show that sticks out of my mind. This was later. This was like in 2001. That was kind of like the kind of show that sort of makes you shit your pants a little bit. It was like I was playing with a drummer, Archie, my buddy Archie, on drums. We did a 2-piece tour together, and we played at Lounge Acts in Chicago. And we opened for Jeff Tweedy, and he was doing like, it was right before Summer Teeth came out, and so Jeff was doing that whole record solo.
Oh, man.
And no one had heard any of it before, you know, so it was sold out.
Yeah.
And yeah, we opened, and that was pretty intense, you know. But people like, surprisingly, they seemed to like us. So, you know, we didn't have that thing where like everybody was just waiting for Jeff and you know, get these guys out. The people were real nice, you know. And
well, that was really
fun.
That doesn't surprise me, man. That doesn't surprise me because I'm a big fan of yours, by the way. I've always really enjoyed your music, and
Thank you.
I was lucky enough you came out to my turf and opened for my band a few years ago, and that was a lot of fun. Okay, cool. Let me ask you some, maybe I'll throw some kind of cliche questions at you. Who's somebody you've never shared a bill with that you would like to share a bill with?
Living or dead? I mean, you know.
Well,
living, probably, right?
If we went living, I mean, if we went dead, it could get a little.
Could be
ridiculous.
A lot of people, yeah.
I mean,
well,
within reason. Let's just say
okay, like
living within reason. Yeah.
Okay. Well, shit. I mean, I always like playing with anybody who has written any song that got me going. So there's a lot of people that I've never played with that would be fun to play with. I'm trying to think of names. I mean, it'd be, I don't know. I mean, you know, gosh, it's just, the list is too long, man. I don't know.
I know. Well, if something comes to mind later, let me know. I might even
okay.
I might even
I'd like to play with, there's a guy out in San Francisco area, Bay Area, that I'm a big fan of, called Virgil Shaw, and I always thought it'd be fun to do a gig with him because I don't know, I just like his tunes a lot, and it seemed like it might be a good fit or something someday. Who knows? Probably won't happen, but you never know.
Okay. Well, he may come to Austin. So you've gone pretty much back and forth, Austin, Minneapolis, for the last 30 years, right?
Sorta, yeah. I mean, I lived I was, when I got out of high school, I moved to Minneapolis.
Where was high school?
Austin, Minnesota. So 100 miles from Minneapolis.
Home of Spam, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
Yeah, how about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like I was in Minneapolis then till 94, and then I came to Austin. And yeah, I have been back there a number of times for periods of 9 months to a year and a half. Most of the last, like, I don't know, 25 years, most of that it's been here in Austin. I've lived, and I think we're here to stay now, but I also lived out in the Northwest for a couple of years, and I lived in Kansas City for a year.
Mm.
So here and there,
Yeah, right on. I'm actually from Kansas City originally. I moved.
You are? I don't know if I knew that. Did you ever tell
Yeah,
me that?
I'm not sure I did. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
I grew up on the Kansas side in
Mhm.
Overland Park, but I still have
Overland
a bunch.
Park.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of family up there. We try to get up there at least once a year, although it's been a couple of years since we've been up there. I've got a couple of nephews who are just killing it up there in the music, kind of local musical heroes up there. And yeah, it's so funny. I haven't lived in Kansas City, Mike, since, gosh, maybe, I don't know, 40 some years. And yet when I go back, it feels like home.
Really?
Yeah, it really does.
Uh-huh.
Well, I guess, what year did you say you moved to Austin?
94.
I moved there in 95. I first moved to Texas in 74 with my parents and lived at a couple of different places, mainly around Dallas area. But obviously discovered Austin pretty quick, and I knew that was pretty much the place to be in Texas. But didn't get there till 90, might have been 94, it's 94, 95. And it was a hard place to live, man. I really decided ultimately I don't want to live in Austin. I want to live close enough to Austin where I can visit, but the traffic was just terrible. I mean, and it's only and that was, think about that. That was 95. Now it's crazy. Is that the thing you like least about Austin, by the way? I was going to ask you, what do you like most? What do you
Well,
like least?
yeah, probably. I mean, the traffic. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, because was talking about the pandemic started and the traffic kind of stopped.
Yeah.
Well, like the first month of that pandemic starting, I was driving around and it felt to me, it felt very much like when I first got here, because like I could drive up and down Lamar, all the way up and down in like 10 minutes. But now, yeah, it's pretty bad. It was sort of city traffic even then, but it's just, yeah, it's a whole different animal now, as you know.
Yeah. What do you like most about living in Austin?
I just at this point, like it's home to me, and I just because I don't know, uh I like I just like the rhythm of it, I guess. It's changed and everything. Everybody knows that, but everywhere has,
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
Austin. And
Yeah.
I mean, I just like the people that I know here and stuff. And I mean, I like the weather. I like the food. I like Mexican food, and I like barbecue, and I like, the it was just always I just have it took me a while to fall in love with it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it happened for many reasons over a long period of time. But now, I do feel at home here, in many different ways.
I find it interesting that one thing you didn't mention there is music, is the music scene there.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes without saying. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
I moved here in the first place,
Sure.
I always, when I first came here, my intention was like, okay, I knew that this town had some stuff going on, especially in the kind of, let's call it, offbeat or quirky. Those are dumb words, but like, songwriting and song singing kind of world. And that's what I wanted to be a part of. So, and that was very much true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then everything else just kind of, it was an adjustment. Like when I first moved here, I do remember clearly the first few months I would meet people, because I didn't really know anybody here when I moved here. And I met people pretty quickly, but I was in my 20s, and I remember that a few situations where I'd be by myself and someone would just walk up to me and begin to tell me like all kinds of personal details about their life and stuff. And coming from where I come from, I mean, I don't know what's like growing up in Kansas, but I mean, in Minnesota, it's it can be, or at least it was then, a fairly tight-lipped kind of environment in a lot of ways. Just a
Yeah.
different sensibility.
It is.
I don't want to knock it because I love Minnesota too, but anywho, I remember specifically the feeling of like almost like a paranoia, like, why is this person talking to me? Like, this is unusual to me. And I come to find out that that was just sort of the way people behave down here.
Mm-hmm.
and I grew to appreciate that more and more over the years, I guess, you know.
Has it changed you a little bit? Do you think you're more open like that now?
I think I probably, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard to, you know, I don't know about you, but it's like it's hard to think back on like who you were, you
sure.
know, 30 years ago. It's trippy, man. You know, yeah, I think it's changed me living here for sure, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of music scene in Austin, you know, I
Yes.
wanted to plug
Thanks for
your record store and ask you
yeah.
about that. What led you to decide to open a record store, and what's it been like being a business owner like this? It is a big step, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, super big step. Although it felt kind of like a logical progression in a way from what we were doing. I didn't, you know, my wife and I had for years fantasized about opening up a coffee shop, maybe with records involved and stuff. And I had worked in a record store along the way a couple times, couple places, once here, once Minneapolis and St. Paul. Anyways, we had thought about doing this thing, and we actually had a thing going with a partner, and then the pandemic hit, and things got complicated. And you know, I was a sound engineer, and for like my bread, you know,
Mm,
and I wasn't really, you know, I mean, I played music, but I don't really make any money doing that, you know, to speak of. So that ended with the pandemic. So it was like, okay, what are we gonna do? And we eventually just sort of decided that my wife and I, that is, decided that we wanted to do something, but this coffee shop thing just seemed too overwhelming
yeah,
of a thing to take on, particularly, you know, in the pandemic. And so we, you know, we had a talk with our prospective business partner and stuff, and he was cool about it. He helped us get the store started. He's working here. So, you know, we're like, um, yeah, we're like doing the thing that seemed to make the most sense. And it's fun and it's a lot of work, but you know, it's what I do anyway, you know. I sit around
hmm,
or listen to records and think about
right,
records.
yeah. Yeah, it does make sense. I've often thought about it myself. One of the things I've wondered though, and I've worked in record stores. I worked in the original Sound Warehouse. Uh,
Oh, really?
yeah, that would have been 70, 76 or 75, 76
Mm-hmm.
in Dallas off of Lemon Avenue there. And man, that was a blast because what I got to do for the most part is just float. It was, you know, kind of the beginning of the whole Peaches Sound Warehouse, big, huge box stores. And so what I mainly did is I floated around, interacted with customers and asked them what they liked and got to play records for them, you know, and that was a lot of fun. I always want, and I considered at the time, is this something that I'd want to do for a living, somehow get in this business, open a shop or manage a store or something. And one of the things that I think steered me away from it is I was afraid I'd kind of get burned out on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I felt like, man, if I make this my business, have you had any feelings of shit, I don't want to go to the record store today kind of thing?
I haven't, but and I mean I can see that, you know, someone else said that to me too. Uh I was talking to a guy who collects records and recently, and he kind of said to me like, I've thought about doing a record store, but I didn't want the thing that I love to become my job.
Yeah.
And I get that point of view, but I guess I don't really look at it that way, because see, I mean, because I'm gonna be working somewhere. I don't have like, I'm not independently wealthy. I don't, like, I
Hmm.
have to work. And
Hmm.
so to me, it's like I look at it differently. I would rather work around what I know and love.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
great,
no, I
man.
don't ever not want to come into the record store. I always want to come in. I mean, we've only been open a little less than a year, so who knows? But like, I don't
Sure.
know.
Well, yeah, and it's a great little record store. People, whoever's watching this,
Thanks.
if you haven't been there, you should go. It's great, and I suppose that's one of the benefits of it is getting to see people that come in. And I think last time I was there, Alejandro Escobedo was walking out as I was coming in, you know, and I'm sure you get folks like that, and just people you know, and meet new people who are interested in music and records, and
Yeah.
it's got to be a pretty cool thing. Well, let me ask you a couple things about your website, or really, I just want to make a point about something and ask about something else. I was poking around looking at that, and I love the, is it called Hardly Sound, part 1 and 2, those little videos?
Oh yeah, yeah. My friend Randy did that.
Man, it's really cool. It's really cool the way you tell the story of the guy that you met at the bar, but it's in parts, and it cuts to other songs, and I really enjoyed that. Very clever way to put that together. But man, that Looking Out for Hope video really grabbed my attention. Tell me, what's the story about that? That's I know you're reading that narrative. Did you write that narrative?
No, I didn't. I believe that was written by a guy named Brian Masella, if I have that name right.
Okay. How'd you get involved in that project?
Well, it was pretty, you know, I mean, it was nothing too exciting. I mean, I just my friend Tom Herbers, who was a engineer, producer, live sound guy up in Minneapolis. He's worked with a lot of people, and among the bands he works with is Low.
Yeah.
And they were doing another friend of ours named Phil Harder, who did videos in the 90s for all kinds of bands. He made a short film with Low did the music, and it was based on this short story by this guy Brian, and they were putting it together, and for part of the film they needed somebody to read this. It's almost you saw it. It's almost like a diary or something.
Yeah.
Type thing, and so, or it's a letter to somebody, I think. Anyways, yeah, they just needed somebody to read it, and I knew those guys, and Tom called me and said, "Hey, would you want to do this?" And I just did it, and it's really cool though. It's a nice piece of work, isn't it?
It is cool, and I'll tell you what it reminded me of. Are you do you know Willie Vlaughton?
Yeah, I mean, I met him years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got that record, Post a Wire, that has little vignettes between a lot of the songs that are postcards that he reads. I don't know if you remember that, but it has that kind of same sound a little bit, and it kind of made, when I hadn't listened to Willie's record in years, but when I listened to that Low video that you did, it really reminded me of that, and it made me wonder. I wonder why we don't do more of that, where you kind of combine the spoken word with short stories and music. And you would think that would be a no-brainer that more people would do, but I don't know about you. I don't see that much of it.
I don't either. I think about that sometimes too, man. Like not, like that, and just different kinds of audio collage and stuff. It seems like the possibilities are endless, and yet most people are very true to this kind of like song, 3 minutes, little break, you know.
Yeah.
People should do more of that. We should do more of that.
I agree. We should challenge each other to do more of that. Hey, one question, and it's an open-ended question that I want to ask all my guests on this thing is what about Bob? What I don't have anything specific in mind, but I'm just curious, you know, some of your thoughts about Dylan, how you know, being a Minnesota guy, it must be a particularly kind of interesting, and what your thoughts about him are, and how important
I could talk about that. I do. I have friends that we just talk. One guy I know in particular, he and I talk for hours about Dylan. I'm one of those guys. I'm an inveterate Dylan psycho. Like I love his stuff. I mean, I studied it. You too. Okay.
Yeah.
He's just endlessly fascinating to us, right? And such a huge cultural figure. Now, you know, I happen to think, of course, you know, okay, we could go, you know, all kinds of tangents, of course, but I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, I've been listening to him since I was a kid. I'm going to see him play in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Which is going to be interesting. He's playing the new record, or you know, not new anymore, but
right.
And I'm going to my parents live in Kansas City, and I go up to to Minnesota once in a while still too, now and then, and I'm doing that in May, and I'm on the way. I'm hitting that Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa.
Yeah, I just heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I signed up, man. I thought, well, because I looked at the dates, I'm like, well, it's open. So I signed up for the second day. I'm going, that's even open.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm definitely in that category of people who won't shut up about Bob Dylan. I mean, my wife sort of probably puts up with more of that than she needs to, but she's really
Yeah.
cool about it.
Yeah.
I try not to explain too much.
My wife would
But I
probably
just
say
get
the same
excited.
thing, man. Yeah, she'd probably say the same thing. And you know, I mean, maybe this is too obvious to state, but when it's, you know, it's so interesting when people seem to not realize how important this guy was and is still. And so, you know, and I suppose if you were 20 years old now and you just first listened to Dylan, you would say, I don't get it. What's the deal, right? But having lived through it, I'm old enough to have been there in those early days, and then being a songwriter yourself. I mean, as Steve Earle says, we're all post Bob Dylan songwriters. I mean, you can't escape it.
Yeah.
He's that important. But yeah, man, we could geek out for a while on Dylan for sure. Any particular? Do you cover any Dylan songs when you play live?
No, I don't cover him really, because you know, I don't know why. It's not because it's sacred ground or anything. I guess I feel like I don't. It's his voice. To me, it's like, yeah, people talk about his writing, which of course is phenomenal or whatever, but
Yeah.
to me, Bob Dylan is hands down the best singer like America has ever produced since at least, you know, World War II. Like he's, you know, that voice to me is like, it's got just like the most, the deepest like sense of America that there is, you know, a singer anywhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Warts and all, right?
Yeah.
The ugliness of America, the sweetness, the arrogance of it, all of it. It's in his
Yeah.
voice. Anybody else singing those words, not that there's anything wrong with that, but to me, man,
Yeah.
it's like it's got to be him singing it.
Yeah. I guess I can see that point of view, although I do cover him a little bit. But yeah, his voice now is almost like, it's like Abraham Lincoln or something. I mean, it's that that much a part of America and part of our history and just in our DNA at this point. It's really, it's kind of almost hard to talk about him, as I'm sensing from you. In a way, you can geek out and talk about him for hours, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to talk about him because it's hard to explain how important he's been, yeah, just the impact he's had on all of us. It's huge. Well, who are some other folks that we haven't mentioned that you maybe when you were a kid you were listening to and you were influenced by?
Well, there's a bunch, but I got to ask you one more thing about
Yeah,
Dylan.
please.
So, like, do you think? Okay, do you remember, like, when we were kids, there was like people like, I think a good example would be like Louis Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
When we were kids, Louis Armstrong was like this guy in like a top hat, kind of like singing Hello Dolly on TV.
Yeah.
And that was like, that has nothing to do with like what made him such an incredible force in American music, right? And do you think that maybe nowadays, you were talking about how people now might not understand the significance of Dylan. Do you think maybe that's what he is to them? He's like this weird old guy that's like doing this shit that.
Yeah, probably. And I also think that they just take so much for granted. You know, someone who is younger than 30, unless they're a real student of music, they just can't understand what it was like when Steve Earle, by the way, speaking of Steve Earle again, he I don't know if you've heard this thing he's done where he talks about the moment in 1965 when rock and roll became literature. And it was when he said Bob Dylan wanted to be John Lennon and John Lennon wanted to be Bob Dylan. And Dylan went electric and Lennon went acoustic at the same time. But Dylan bringing an entirely new way of writing lyrics to rock pop music that just really had not been done before him.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, that's just one example of many things about him that it's really hard for people to understand that because they take it for granted now that, it's hard to imagine someone like Brian Wilson saying when he heard Dylan, he was like, we can do that. Oh,
right.
Okay. Yeah. With Armstrong, man, I totally hear what you're saying, but for me, that's not who I think of, because I have the kind of weird experience of my dad played sax and clarinet and actually sat in with Louis and his band at one point.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. He was Dad was playing dance bands. He was kind of a local hero in a small town in Nebraska, and actually played with Lawrence Welk in one of his early versions before he became a kind of a TV thing. But Armstrong's band came through his town, and Dad sat in the after party with him, and he pretty much quit music after that, Mike. He said playing with those guys made him realize I can never be that.
Holy shit.
It blew him away so much. He was real proud of himself and thought he was great. And it was kind of that moment of saying, I've been so naive. I had no idea. And a lot of it was improvisation for him. He still felt like, put a chart in front of me and I can play it and hang with the best, but take that away and within a minute or so I'm lost, and these guys are jamming for hours without anything other than just their imagination, and he couldn't really grasp that. And so yeah, that's something interesting about my dad for sure, that that was kind of the highlight and the low light in a way, in the sense that it made him not play music the rest of his life.
That's intense.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Do you mind if I hit you with some kind of cliche short answer questions, sort of a Colbert style? Just hit you with some and see what comes up.
Yeah, whatever, man. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm game.
And the idea is short answers, but if you want to give long answers, that's fine too.
I'll try not to windbag too much.
No, it's okay, man. If you do, let's see. Let me start by, you got one record you can listen to the rest of your life. What is it?
One?
I know. And it might change tomorrow, so it's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's just say like Kind of Blue or something.
Yeah, there it is up there. That would be what that actually is my standard answer to that question.
Is that right?
It is. Yeah, it is.
It seems like the kind of record where if you were tied to that shit the rest of your life, that would be enough of a centering thing for you that you could survive having only one record to listen to.
Yeah. And by the way, that one of the interesting things about that record that I think I didn't know, I was very into jazz as a young guy, but I'd never really understood a whole lot about it or really got into it with anything but just kind of a fanboy kind of attitude. But I found out relatively recently that it wasn't that popular until it didn't become the greatest jazz selling album of all time until like 25 years ago or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. How do you deal with the slings and arrows of life, the ship that we all have to deal with? What's one thing that you do to deal with that?
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, in general, if you're asking me if there's anything I do that helps,
yeah,
it's probably just checking myself to like now and then to like not, sweat the small stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And in the same sense to like remember to sort of live in the moment, not in the past and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
That helps.
Do you meditate?
I do not. I have, and
Mm-hmm.
I used to more than I do now.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, that's one of the meditation's such a misunderstood thing, but
Mhm.
that is definitely one of the benefits. It's the point of it is not to meditate. The point of it is to off the cushion, so to speak, learn to deal with the slings and arrows of life, and part of that is just being in the present moment and letting shit go.
Do you meditate regularly?
I do, and I teach meditation quite a bit. When I was I was a professor at A&M for 25 years. I just retired last year, and for about the last 10 years of it, I started introducing meditation in class to my students. And I thought, especially at a conservative university like A&M, I thought they would say, who is this hippie and what is this crap? No, man, they embraced it, loved it, even before it became so popular like it is now. And the reason why is because, man, we live in such a world of busyness and distraction and anxiety now. The technology has made it so that we're so busy and so on most of the time that most people are really not dealing with that very well. And I think they're looking for tools like this. I think, yes, it's become a little pop, a little cliche, a little bit. There's a lot of probably nonsense out there, but I think at the same time, there's a really good reason that it's becoming more popular, because people need it. They need something like that.
I agree. I think there's a lot to that. It counteracts the kind of the psychotic sort of like like people living in sort of weird anxiety dreams at their phones, and
Yeah.
real intense self-absorption and stuff. That's not healthy. And it seems like meditation might be a way. I mean, the little that I've done it some, and it's cool because just if you're able to get to where, and I was only able to get there a little bit, but to where you really do feel even just for a second that you're just free and empty of all of that, it's really a therapeutic.
It is, man. And one of the, related to that, I would say one of the main benefits for me, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I go on retreats and whatnot, is the a deeper and deeper realization that that a lot of what we call reality is constructed, first of all, in our minds. And second of all, even what I consider me, a lot of it is just a bullshit construct that I've created. And whether you call it, Freud called it ego, whatever you want to call it, but it's liberating. A lot of people think, well, that's kind of selfish or something. No, it's actually, it's in fact, this has been proven in a lot of studies, or at least supported in a lot of studies, that it will make you, meditation practice will make you more empathic, because it actually gets you out of your own shit, actually. But all right, man, books. What books have been an influence on you, or that you think of, and some of the profound books that you've read over the years?
I mean, I've read some good books. I don't read as much as I sort of want to or think about reading, but I have read some pretty influential books, I guess. I can think of a number of them. I mean, when I was like in my real early 20s, like a lot of people probably, I was real enamored with beat literature,
Yeah.
So for me, the big ones there were that knocked my socks off was one of them was Visions of Cody by Jack Kerouac.
Yeah.
And the Subterraneans also. I read On the Road, but that one didn't hit me as hard for some reason. Maybe just because it was.
How about Dharma Bums?
Dharma Bums is good, yeah.
Yeah. That was a big
And
one.
I liked Allen Ginsberg a whole lot too. Reality Sandwiches and Howl and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Huge. Gulliver's Travels kind of for some reason hit me really hard.
That's cool.
And loved that. Gosh, I mean, recently I haven't read any fiction recently. I read a really cool book my dad gave me a while back though, called Stranger in the Woods. It's a nonfiction book about about the North Pond hermit, this guy up in Maine who lived in the woods for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
Really great book. Um, yeah. I
Yeah.
recently read some poetry online by Dave Berman, who I like to read every now and then because he was, to me, I mean, we really lost a good one there.
We sure did. Yeah.
When he passed, because his stuff really gets under my skin, under a lot of people's skin, I imagine.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I've got that book of his on my shelf back there. I forget what the title of it.
the actual air book.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have that one. Yeah. And I was a big fan. I studied a lot of poetry in college, and I'm sure it's influenced my songwriting a lot. That's, by the way, that's something I didn't ask you about, and we should tie up that loose end, so to speak, even if it's brief. You know, how you go about writing songs, and do you have a particular approach, or is it just something that changes every time you write a new song, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have really a standard way, but I just like I mean, I go around with little ideas and I get them down, and then I sit on them for a while, and then I'll sit down and look at them, and they start to take a shape, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then I'll bear down and just sort of do the thing like this, whatever the sculpture thing, or they say,
Mm-hmm.
where you have this rock and you just chip away everything that's not the picture,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's sort of how I do it. And you know, sometimes for me it's quick and sometimes it's real slow, so it
Yeah.
depends on the tune.
And is there any correlation there between the better ones? Do the better ones come fast, or not necessarily?
Yeah,
Yeah, me too.
almost always. Yeah.
And do you have that thing that and maybe I make too much of this because it's such an important thing to me, that meaning kind of comes last, in the sense that there's something maybe I want to say, but what makes more sense, or what's more important to me there, is the way the sound of the words fit the melody at any given point.
Yeah.
And so I might have to sacrifice some at least obvious or literal meaning for a sound that fits there. Do you ever encounter that kind of thing?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
talking about, yeah, I mean, trying to, yeah, create that, you know, it's more important, right, to have that sort of hypnosis happen. And to do that, you have to have a certain cadence, and the words have to,
Yep. And you
it's
know
got
it.
to almost enter the people's minds without them thinking about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you try to nail down some kind of you know, some kind of concise thought,
Yeah.
it's gonna miss most of the time,
You know,
right?
one of your songs just came to mind that might be a good example of this, and I'll be damned if I can remember the name of it. It's the one about, maybe it's Rooster Nudes. It's the one about the guy with the Korean guitar.
Yeah, that song's called I Forgot.
I
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah, that song is, those words couldn't be different. You know, they just fit the melody in a way that just seems like it was just given to you or something. And it was that one that came pretty quickly.
Yeah, that one I remember writing pretty quick. So a bunch of stuff on that record I did pretty fast. Like there's that, and not that I think it's a very, I have issues with it, but this really, really long song in there called Local that I remember sitting down basically in one, just writing that whole thing out. And I didn't really change anything because I figured, well, and now I feel like, yeah, I could have used some trimming, you know, but at the time I was just like, nah.
Yeah.
It's fun to write them that fast when you
Yeah,
can.
it is.
It doesn't
It
happen
is.
that much.
It is. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, here's a good one for you. What happens when we die?
Uh, we're dead. I mean, you know, I'm a pessimist or something in that kind of realm in a way. I guess our bodies are gone, of course, but I mean, I think people live on, like, but they live on in the consciousness of other people, and
Yeah.
then they die, and then, you know, so it's,
Yeah.
that's how we live on. And we, you know, I mean, and that's why, you know, I have much respect for people who you know, conquer addictions and so forth with the idea of, like, you know, surrendering to a higher power and things and all that. I have respect for it, but I also, for me, I've never been able to, I don't know, really live with that idea, because like a higher power, um, it seems to like pass the buck. It's like our
Mhm.
energy is here now with us now, and
Yeah.
you know,
Well, you know,
that's power.
unless I'm mistaken, and I don't think I am, a lot of folks that go that AA route that you're talking about, the higher power doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be
Right,
even something beyond, you know, it doesn't have to be something metaphysical. It could be music,
right,
you know,
right.
it could be love, it could be, you know, something like that. So yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, well, what's something people would really be surprised about? People who kind of know you, like me, we don't know each other that well. What's something you could say, yeah, this might surprise you, maybe a guilty pleasure or something about you that most people probably wouldn't know.
Uh, um, I I don't know, this might not surprise anyone I know, but like I'm a real, like, I blubber like a child in movies that are sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a complete cream puff in
Yeah.
emotionally. Like, I'm
Yeah.
barely holding it together right now, but like, um if I see something that is even remotely, like, in other words, if some Hollywood freak decides to make a thing that's going to just totally pull the strings of the audience shamelessly, it works on me like pretty much every time.
Me too, man. Me too. Did you see the Ricky Gervais Afterlife series?
No, I never saw that. Was that good?
Oh man, I'll tell you, I wept like a baby.
You did?
Yeah, but then 5 minutes
Good
later,
for you, man.
I laughed so hard I couldn't, you know,
Yeah.
I couldn't sit still. So I do recommend it, by the way. And it gets worse as you get older. I found you're more likely to
Yeah.
cry as you get older,
Why
and that's
is that? Why is that? It's true, I think,
um
for me anyway.
I think you're I think, I mean, think about it. When we're young, especially when we're really young, especially as men, even if we had parents who are relatively liberated, we still have this expectations of a certain kind of macho, even if, and the macho may not be the right word, but we're supposed to be tough, you know, we're not supposed, boys,
Yeah.
I can
Stoic.
remember,
Yeah.
uh, boys don't cry. Why are you crying? I'll give you something to cry about, you know, that kind of attitude. And I think
Yeah.
we repress a lot of those emotions when we're young. And I think as we get older, we shed that skin a little bit and say, you know, screw it, man. I know that I'm feeling this, so I'm going to go ahead and show it. And then also maybe part of it, Mike, is I mean, I'll be 66 this year, and you know, I'm relatively young for my age. I'm hopefully relatively healthy for my age, and
Yeah,
have
you're
another.
looking good, man.
Oh, thank you. I hopefully have another 20 years or so, but still, you get to that point where you know more than just in an abstract way as you do when you're young that this has an end to it, and it doesn't last forever. And what's today? Monday. We only have so many Mondays left, and it's just true.
That's
And
right.
so I think that becomes more and more of our deeper into our mindset. So things that are sad are more sad to us. Maybe. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Okay, last question. What do you hope people say about you when you do die? How do you want to be remembered? What do you hope people say at your funeral?
I don't know, man. I guess uh I just want people to you know, think of me as a decent dude, man. I mean, that's all. Like, just who is decent to other people. Um, cause that's, I mean, that's about as good as you can do in this life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is
Well,
to keep your moral compass like that.
I've certainly always thought of you that way, and haven't spent much time around you, but one of the things that always attracted me to you, besides your music, which I really dig, is that you just, man, you reek authenticity. And I really appreciate that. You just seem like a sincere cat, and I applaud you.
Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say. You know, we're just all trying to get through it together, right?
Amen, brother. Well, hey, man, thank you so much for taking the time to connect, and love talking to you. And hopefully you'll see you soon. I'm coming down to. You going to be around for South by Southwest?
Yeah, I'll be here. I'm gonna be working, doing some sound again and working at the store and stuff. So yeah, I'll be around.
I'm playing a set that last Sunday at Style Switch Barbecue up on the north side there.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, so maybe I'll slide by and say hi to you while I'm there.
What time are you playing?
I don't know yet. I'm not sure.
I'm playing that Sunday too. But I think we're early in the day or something. I can't remember.
I'll let you know, man.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, thanks so much, Mike. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, see ya.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.